Needless to say, oil magnate D.H. Byrd factors in every JFK assassination narrative. At the time of the president's murder, he was the owner of the actual building at 411 Elm Street, where the Texas School Book Depository leased space. Moreover, students of the assassination know of Byrd's high-ranking association with Cap. This is of interest since Oswald joined a Louisiana Cap squadron as a teenager in the 1950s. On the surface, it appears only a coincidence that this ex-cadet would spend his final days of life working in a building owned by a significant figure in Cap history. But a newly uncovered connection suggests it is not out of the realm of possibility. Cap might have doubled as a recruitment front for suspected assassination plotters like a David Ferry, who was Oswald's squadron leader in 1955. On July 1st, 1946, CAP was incorporated by an act of Congress. D. Harold Byrd was named Texas Wing Commander. The Illinois Wing Commander was one Gordon A. DaCosta. Within a few short years, DaCosta would face charges of allegedly misusing 50,000 of CAP federal funds. Deposed from his rank in CAP, DaCosta reconstituted himself as a pseudo-academic. He created the unaccredited Indiana Northern University on a former dairy farm in Gas City, Indiana, halfway between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. He named himself president and chancellor. In other words, DaCosta entered the idiosyncratic world of the diploma mills, fake schools that distributed diplomas and degrees for a price. Indiana Northern University affiliated itself with a similar outfit, Philaethia Bible College of London, Ontario. Philaethia's president was Benjamin C. Eckhart. It was not uncommon for con artists in the fake pseudo-academic racket to dabble as quasi-religious figures in obscure micro-churches. Such a title as the Most Reverend or Archbishop, coupled with doctor or professor, could only enhance the prestige of the school that was their livelihood. Eckhart, for instance, was deemed the Archbishop of Ontario in the Free Protestant Episcopal Church. DaCosta, too, saw value in such a racket. In 1971, DaCosta himself became a bishop in the same church as Eckhart. If one drills down further, these strange worlds provide cover for such nefarious dealings as smuggling contraband, selling counterfeit securities, traveling under phony passports as fake missionaries or ambassadors. Still more troubling, one could hide in plain sight as a cleric or academic while harboring criminals, assassins, and conspirators of coups d'etats. What all this boils down to is this. DaCosta affiliated himself in the same church synod as Oswald's mentor, David Ferry. The bridge ultimately is Christopher Maria C.J. Stanley, Archbishop in the American Orthodox Catholic Church, who consecrated Ferry, Jack Martin, Guy Bannister, and others from Bannister's detective agency into his church in 1961. This strand of the clerical network then goes from a disgraced former Cap Illinois wing commander, Gordon DaCosta, co-cap incorporator with Texas Commander D.H. Byrd, through a very small and esoteric strand of the old Roman Catholic Church to David Ferry and the Cap Louisiana Squadron at Moisant Airport, of which Oswald was a cadet under Ferry, and finally to the Texas School Book Depository owned by Byrd. We now know another Cap link has emerged regarding the catastrophe in Dallas on 11/22, and that is the pastor, Obie Graham, who ran and managed the Abundant Life Temple. This is the church where the alleged killer of Officer Tippit fled and sought refuge inside for about 45 minutes after the shooting. Graham was a one-time chaplain for the South Carolina wing of CAP, and this was according to his 1974 obituary in the Dallas Morning News. So this marks a second building of significance with ties to CAP. It's not exactly clear at the moment when Graham was the South Carolina CAP chaplain, but the CAP chaplaincy program was only formalized in January 1950. Prior to this, Air Force chaplains ministered to CAP units. In 1949, Colonel Byrd was instrumental in helping Major General Charles Carpenter approve this very chaplaincy program. Graham was frequently referred to as doctor in advertisements for church services and newspaper articles. According to the Dallas Morning News obituary, Graham earned his doctorate of divinity from Lighthouse Bible College in Rockford, Illinois. However, in 1949, Lighthouse was ordered by the Federal Trade Commission to cease and desist, representing itself as a college. So, in essence, it was a correspondence school that offered theology degrees for a price. And just to close the circle on these quote unquote legitimate schools, Oswald himself applied to the spurious Albert Schweitzer College before his defection to the USSR. It should be noted that this vast network that involved Acosta, Stanley, and Ferry leads to affiliations under the umbrella of the radical right. White Russians, anti-communists, right-wing generals and colonels, John Birch Society members, occult practitioners, and hypnotherapists. DaCosta and Ferry included. It's no secret, of course, that hypnotism hovers over the assassinations of JFK, MLK, and RFK. Moreover, on April 1st, 1959, General McElroy became the national commander of the Civil Air Patrol. In January 1960, Ferry was appointed aide to General McElroy. At this very time, D.H. Byrd is the chairman of the CAP National Executive Board. That Ferry, as McElroy's aide, interacted with Byrd during this time seems to be a foregone conclusion. Also, during this time, Oswald defects to Russia. In 1961, Ferry is arrested on his morals charge. In November 1961, Ferry is consecrated bishop by Stanley. After JFK's assassination, Stanley will tell authorities Ferry and Martin told them of a plan to assassinate the president. There's one potential cap link that has been posited by some theorists. I think it's worth mentioning. After Oswald supposedly murdered Tippit, he fled to the Texas Theater. Johnny Calvin Brewer of Hardy's Shoe Store claimed Oswald ducked into the store as sirens wailed down the street. The response to an officer down. This would have been J.D. Tippit. When the sirens subsided, Oswald proceeded towards the Texas Theater. Suspicious, the astute and intrepid Brewer followed Oswald to the movie house and even went inside. There's something funny about him, Brewer told the ticket taker, Julia Postal. Dallas PD was subsequently called to the scene, arresting Oswald on sight. At his Warren Commission testimony, Brewer was asked how he heard about the shooting of the president. Quote, we were listening to a transistor radio there in the store, just listening to a regular radio program, and they broke in with the bulletin that the president had been shot. And from then, that is all there was. We listened to all of the events. But who was we? Ian Griggs for Dealey Plaza Echo asked Brewer that very question in 1986. Griggs, when this happened, John, were you in the shop by yourself? Brewer, there were two other men in there. They were from IBM. They were in the neighborhood. I had known them since I came there. Griggs, customers? Brewer, no, they weren't customers. They'd just come in and kill time and lounge around. While there is nothing seemingly out of the ordinary with Brewer's story, a shoe store is an odd place for computer professionals to kill time. Who were these IBM men? Per New Orleans police detective Frederick O'Sullivan, a former CAP cadet with Oswald, David Ferry once performed a hypnosis demonstration at a CAP meeting on one Robert Radelet, phonetic spelling of last name Radelet, a CAP cadet executive officer, according to Ferry's FBI interview. This was about 1955. In November of 1963, Radelet was now employed by IBM. However, the identity of these particular IBM men remain inconclusive, like so many characters' situations on November 22nd, 1963.